Oh my gosh, this top is coming up so sparkly! Hi everybody, it's Mel here and welcome back once again to my channel. Today's video is going to be on exam preparation. It's part of this kind of end of semester panic series that I've put together, and we've already covered how I take notes on books and journals and articles and prepare for essays and all that kind of thing. So all the links to the previous videos will be in the description box below, and you'll also be able to find them in the little cards button up at the top, and some of them will shoot across the screen at various points during this video. So like I've said in previous videos, I am a final year Bachelor's of Music student, so my kind of tips and techniques are kind of geared a little bit more towards the arts and humanities subjects. So I'm not saying that they wouldn't be useful for someone from a different discipline, but this is just where I'm coming from and to give you an idea where I'm coming from. So when it comes to preparing for exams, what I tend to do is to go back and look at the course description, try and really figure out what this course was directing you towards, check out the course aim, what you're expected to know, what you've been expected to learn this whole time, and really make sure that you've got a good grasp on that before you begin studying. Lectures will generally give you some idea or direction of what thing you should be studying. Now, they're not going to explicitly obviously tell you in the question or explicitly tell you what you have to study because they can't do that, but I think it's really important to attend all your lectures on the run up to exams, because this is typically when it's going to happen. Now, if that's not possible, still try and engage with your lecturer in some kind of way, especially if you're worried, or if you've had a friend who's attended the lectures, be sure to get the notes off them if exam has been mentioned. So one thing that I think is like vitally important and that people tend to forget whenever it comes to the exam period is self-care. One thing that's really important is making sure you get adequate sleep, eating healthy, all that kind of stuff, and I'm actually doing a whole video dedicated to self-care, so it will be up next if it's not already in the description box below or linked at the end of the video. So what I typically tend to do is, at this point of the year, whenever exams are coming up, I'll go back through my notebook. I have this big notebook that I've kept all my lecture notes in, and I'll obviously pick the particular class or module that it's related to, and I'll just kind of go back and refresh my memory. Now, these notes are things that the lecturers mentioned, so you'll catch little things, you'll see what way you've been steered towards, and I'm not very meticulous about this process. Like, I don't take notes of these notes or anything like that at this stage. It's just kind of refreshing my memory of the course. Sometimes I'll go on to, we have like an online thing where we can find our lectures slides and things like that. I'll maybe go in and have a wee look through those. Maybe later on I'll do that a bit more meticulously, but at the start it's kind of just more refreshing myself, getting to grips with everything and kind of seeing where the lecture's been steering things. And once I've done this and I've kind of got a good idea and a good grasp of the direction I'm heading, I'll head online to find past papers. I think that this is very important. Not necessarily, well, yeah, I think it's important to practice them, but what I'll do is I'll try and find a couple years worth, and what you'll find is, while questions may not necessarily be exactly the same, you'll end up finding other correlations, maybe strong themes running through them, and then I'll kind of be able to hone my research and studies a little bit more onto these areas. But this is something that you need to be careful of. Like, don't just hone in on a question, because there's no guarantee that that question will come up, but you'll maybe get some idea, some general knowledge of what's going to be expected. Now, while you're looking at past papers, this is another really good opportunity, to what I've said constantly throughout the series, to give yourself a chance to unpack a question on the spot. So you look at these past papers and see what they're really asking. It's one of the most important things whenever you're going into exams, so it's definitely important to practice unpacking that question and to making bullet point answers and things like that. And at this point, this is whenever I'll still go and start making notes. Now, like I said, I'll leave the link to how I make notes on books and journals and articles in the description box. But my method for this is slightly different. So I still kind of do the same thing where I'm going through and pulling out information out of books, but I won't be as meticulous as taking these big chunks of direct quotations, because that's not going to be needed. What I'll generally do is put like sentences or points down of what certain scholars are saying, or summing up the information from a paragraph. Now, I do take quotations down if it's something that I think is going to be really important and that I think will be really useful within the exam, but just don't forget that long quotations and long things to remember whenever you're in an exam situation and you're under pressure is not generally a good idea. So if you really want a quotation or something like that, then do try and keep it short so that you'll be able to remember it properly whenever you're in the exam situation. So once I've gathered these notes, I'll typically end up with a couple of pages worth. That's whenever I start condensing them. So I'll shorten these down and down, and then I'll put them on little flashcards, normally little bullet points. And these are so handy because you can stick them in your bag, you can take them everywhere with you, you can study on the train if you want, you can study on the toilet if you want, and you can just bring them about, because obviously one thing that's really important for exam is your memory and memorizing things. So whenever you've got things in bullet point form, you can kind of go through them and check them off. For me in music, we would sometimes have set works that we really need to remember, so like the name, the number, what the actual work is, and things like that, and these can be in different languages. So if that's something you're concerned about, what I recommend is having these on a separate card, but also writing them out repeatedly, or making some kind of a little song up to help you remember them. Now that might sound a little bit strange, but certainly for me anyway, singing something will definitely help me remember it and repeat it in my head. So whenever I'm sitting in the exam, obviously I don't sing it out loud in the exam, because that would be a little bit strange, but I'll sing it in my head and be able to write it down there. So yeah, writing things down repetitively, singing things and that kind of thing will really help you remember them. Then once I've done all these things, then I'll take a stab at a question from a past paper. So I'll not necessarily answer it in a full essay form as you would in the exam itself, but as long as I can get my main points out, so maybe answer it in bullet point form, know what I'm talking about, being able to remember those set works, and you can kind of find out if you've grasped those things whenever you take a stab at it. So if there's anything you've been trying to remember, this is your opportunity to try and write it down without looking at it. The night before the exam, make sure you have things prepared. Make sure that you know where you're going, where your exam's going to be, how long it's for, if you need your student card or any other information or prints out, things like that, your seating, then make sure you have that already the night before. This is not something that you're going to be panicking about the next day. Obviously be sure to make sure you get a really good sleep. Panic revising is not the best idea at this stage. By that I mean staying up really late. We'll get into a bit more of that whenever the self-care video is uploaded. But yeah, I just don't really recommend staying up late or anything like that. Get to bed at a reasonable hour. Whenever you're up in the morning, make sure you're up in a reasonable time, have a really good breakfast, leave early, and just make sure that you're doing things that are going to keep your anxiety levels down, because they are going to go up. You're going to be in an exam situation. I've never met anyone who has a stress-free exam period. Like, it's going to be a stressful situation, so do things to help yourself keep that stress down. I always bring a bottle of water into the exam room with me as well, just so that I can make sure that I stay hydrated, and I'll have a watch on. Obviously there's normally a clock in the hall, but I wear my watch to it, but you do have to be careful with that, because I think digital watch and stuff, they can be funny about and you might have to remove them. So the exam itself, you've made it into the room, it's happening, the paper is in front of you. One of the most important things is to organise your timing. So have a look at the exam, be sure to know what questions you need to answer, how many you need to answer, if it's in certain sections, what do you need to answer out of this, this and this. For example, say you're in a 3-hour exam, you have 3 questions to ask, well then that's going to make it easy to start breaking down your time and saying what you need to do within that time. So taking that as an example, say we have a 3-hour exam, we have 3 questions to answer. I do not take that as an hour of writing, an hour of writing, an hour of writing. I will go through, I'll take the time I need to select the question, make sure it's a question that I think I have an appropriate answer for. So again, we've got the question, we're breaking down the question, we make sure we know what we're going to say. We do not go in and write. I will give myself about 10 minutes to do a plan, and this is similar to the plan that I've done in the essay writing video, so something very similar to that. I'll have my main points all down so that whenever I come to writing the essay, I can just flick back to that, and I know that everything will be a lot more concise, it'll be a lot more thought out, and I'll not just be rambling through my writing. So yes, I give myself 10 minutes for that. I'll give myself maybe about 40 minutes to write the question, and then I'll give myself 10 minutes to check back through it at the end. So your hour could be broken up into something like that, but that might not necessarily work for you. You might break it a little bit differently. Maybe you need less time writing, more time planning, etc. But yeah, just be aware of that. Do not waste all of your time on one question. and then panic about the other two or things like that. Really break down your time effectively. So yeah, just remember not to try not to panic. It's easier said than done, especially when you're in an exam situation. It can seem like such a long time to be writing for, but then you go in there, you sit down, you realise that it's just going to fly by like that. Don't panic about that. It happens to everybody. The good thing is about having a plan is if you do run out of time and you don't get like a question finished, well then they can maybe go back and take some of your points into consideration in your little plan that you've done out. Maybe you've got a really good bullet point and you just didn't get to fit it in your actual text of the essay. Sometimes the markers will consider that. So that's why it's a really, really good idea to have that kind of thing done. So exams can just be a really, really stressful situation, but I really, really hope that some of these tips will help you. There are loads of tips and stuff available across the internet. Some of the things that I've said may not appeal to you, or you may have a different technique, but like I say in all the other videos, it's definitely good to try different things when you're studying. Make sure you give yourself time to try different things to see what works for you. And yeah, just try and keep your stress levels down. Keep prepared is one of the main things that I can really, really stress because it will keep your stress down. And yeah, so hopefully you've enjoyed this video and you found it useful, and I'll see you in the next upload. Bye!
I'll raise a glass to you, and you'll raise a glass to me, and when they're half full, we'll top them up with